Meridian. Chapter 5. Interlude. Stolas. The components necessary for a spell of this nature were not things so easily sourced, especially in a place like Imp City. Stolas's task took him across Pride, to every vendor of wares both strange and dangerous, list of ingredients clutched tightly in his hand. Aged brimstone, bone meal, thorn nettle, rat entrails, red ectoplasm, Kiev eyelashes, and lavender. This endeavour took him most of the day, and the sun was starting to set by the time he was hauling everything he needed, tote bag heaving on his shoulder, towards the only place he could think to use as the site for the ritual. The office would be empty, and he had a key. He didn't bother turning on the lights. Better that no passerby noticed he was there, and his eyes were attuned to the dark after all. With quiet focus, he got to work on the next stage of the plan. He laid the grimoire open, spread out his notes, heeding closely as he set up for the spell. "Forgive me, darling," he murmured, opening the can of paint he'd acquired from the hardware store next door and desecrating the office carpet, painting thick red lines and circles into it until he was looking down at a perfect pentagram. He doubled and triple-checked the details of it. The lines needed to be precise, the flourishes just so. This kind of magic was indescribably dangerous. Of course it was, or it wouldn't be forbidden. It would be intact, not some dark secret he had hunted down in the margins of every page of the grimoire. If it went wrong, it could be catastrophic. If it went right, it could be just as catastrophic. What he was attempting to do was abominably foolish, the height of hubris and recklessness. But wouldn't it be worth it? Wouldn't any price be worth paying to ensure Octavia's safety? To be with her again? For Via? Or for yourself, Stolas? Ah, yes. Very clever, Blitz. Well observed. Stolas spoke his long-delayed riposte into the empty office. I am, as always, a weak and selfish man. No need for either of us to feign surprise. Referring back to his notes, he pulled each ingredient one by one from the bag and placed them in the exact position they must take on the spell circle. He had rather overestimated how much he would need, but better in excess than the other way around. Then he lit the incense candles and dotted them appropriately. Once complete, he took some deep, calming breaths that did little to settle the juddering of his heart in his chest. Now all that was left was to recite the words, hold Octavia's image in his mind, and complete the spell. Then, if there was any mercy left in hell for him, he would be back in his palace, with his daughter in his arms. What? Blitz just didn't understand, though he should. Would he not also do anything, sacrifice anything, if it was his Luna being kept from him? He wouldn't do this, a little voice inside of Stolas whispered. He would fight tooth and claw. He would raise every ring of hell. He would try and try and try until she was safely held in his arms once more. But he wouldn't do this. But Stolas wasn't Blitz. He didn't have his tenacity, or his fire, or his strength. All he had was this. A stolen book and every dime he'd managed to scrape together spent on candles and paint and, eyelashes. And every second that ticked by was 1 second closer to the theft being discovered, to the grimoire being wrenched from his hands, to this one last chance disappearing into smoke like everything else. And once again, me and my business get fucked in the A. "I'll take care of you," Stolas promised him as he pushed a candle with his fingertip the 1/4 inch it needed to be perfectly aligned. "I'll get you that crystal, even if I have to beg, Asmodeus, blackmail, threaten, whatever it takes. I will take care of you." And Blitz would never need to know that he was indebted at all. Stolas needn't even give it to him. He could leave it, oh so precariously positioned by the unlatched window to his chambers. An easy snatch, a great victory for Blitz, and nothing to tether him to Stolas this time. "Just to give you the chance to throw me away again." Silly Blitz. It was Stolas who needed to be thrown away. Then he could return to his opulent palace, his 5-course meals, his plants and his stars and his daughter. And Blitz could return to the life he had before Stolas had crashed into it. He wouldn't need to sleep on the beanbag every night, or pick feathers out of every nook and crevice in the apartment, or go rat-hunting for dinner, or deal with Stolas's mood swings, or Stolas's insensitive faux pas, or Stolas's increasingly obvious pining for more. Sometimes Stolas would let himself imagine how it might go if he told Blitz how deeply he still cared for him, how keenly he still desired him. Sometimes Stolas let himself imagine it going well, Blitz giving him one of those knee-liquefying smiles and saying, "Took you long enough, Bertie," before pulling him down into a kiss, and sometimes Stolas reminded himself of the more likely outcome, of the awkward shuffle and the pained, pitying grimace as Blitz let him down gently, with a, "Look, Stoles." He was letting himself get distracted, shaking off the foolish fantasies for good. Stolas knelt before the circle, holding the grimoire in his hands, notes nestled atop the open pages. Then he opened his mouth and began. "Well, good morning there, Prince Sleeps-a-Lot. Did you sleep well, Big Bird?" The words were ancient and infernal, but Stolas had studied such things since he was a child, and he knew that he spoke them true. "Well, I can't fucking dance with you without getting inventive." The more he spoke them, the deeper his voice grew, the further inside from whence they came, until he was no longer pushing them out as much as he was the conduit by which they rose up into the world. "How the fuck do you burn cereal? I'm serious. You should be studied, you freak of fucking nature. No, hey, come on, no. I'm not mad. Kinda impressed, if anything." He thought hard on Octavia. Her sweet smile, her sour scowl, the cadence of her voice, the slope of her shoulders, the way her face lit up under the starlight, that horrendous music she listened to every hour of the day, every dear, perfect part of her. "My back's killing me, Longlegs. Mind if we could share the couch for one night, right?" The ritual circle began to glow, the red paint shimmering like actual hellfire as the magic came to life, time slowly coming to a halt, now to push forward and turn it back. "Hey, Stolas, do you ever wish..." Never mind. Stolas's voice trembled on the last of the words, and the spell circle dimmed, candles flickering and threatening to sputter out. One last push, just one last push, and... He collapsed forward, catching himself on his elbows, and let out a loud, strangled sob. The pentagram faded to paint once more. The dancing lights of the candles were extinguished in a gasp. "I'm sorry, I can't do it, I'm sorry." Stolas curled over the discarded grimoire, tears falling onto its pages. He didn't want to go back. He didn't want to lose this, lose Blitz, lose all the things he'd learned about him in the awful, maddening, precious months he'd had with him. Lose all of the things Blitz had learned about him, all the ugly, wretched things that somehow still hadn't driven him away. "Via, I'm sorry," he moaned, pressing his face into the carpet. I can't. He was a coward. He was selfish. He couldn't even do this one thing, give up this one thing for her. Once again, he was letting her down. But there was still something he could do. Wiping his tears, he turned the pages of the grimoire back to the protection spell he had originally been seeking. He already had most of the components he needed. It was a far simpler kind of magic to the absurd chronomancy he'd been attempting. All that was missing was owl feathers and... How funny. Stolas plucked a patch from his plumage and set about reordering the pentagram. He relit the candles and rearranged the ingredients, pausing to refer back to the grimoire. Did the brimstone stay or go? Should the lavender be spread more equally? Would the... "Oh, Stolas, just when I think you can't possibly sink any lower." Stolas's heart went cold, and not just because the temperature in the room had plummeted with the arrival of... Andrealphis. He turned his head to the shadow looming at the open door. "Did you really think you'd get away with this?" Andrealphis tutted, sweeping inside, pristine robes swishing. "That I wouldn't know immediately who'd been foolish enough, suicidal enough to steal my grimoire?" "Your grimoire?" Anger rose first, then dissipated into a snort of laughter. "You came on foot? Haven't quite mastered portals yet, I see." Andrealphus's face darkened, and he sputtered out some aborted denials and insults before composing himself. "On foot? My, Stolas, you have gone native. I came by town car, like any civilized demon would." The smirk on his beak lengthened, and he stepped to the side with a flourish. "And I didn't come alone." The new silhouette in the doorway was unmistakable, even without the hat. The cocky tilt to the hips, the curving tail that rattled menacingly. "Long time no see, Feathers," said Stryker as he took a step inside. "Really?" Stolas turned his attention back to his brother-in-law. 56 legions of hell at your command, and you and Stella still just have the one lackey between you." "One's all they need," Stryker said, with frankly unearned confidence. But then he slipped a knife out of his belt and spun it in his hand as he advanced, silver-edged, glinting in the flickering candlelight, and suddenly it didn't feel quite so unearned. Stolas's shoulder twinged, his leg ached, his eyes closed against the threat of that thin blade sliding behind them, cutting out a pretty trophy. "Can't have you seeing me again, can we?" Starting to shake, Stolas could do nothing as Andrealphus swept down to pluck the grimoire from his arms. "Goodbye, Stolas. Let's not meet again." He strode back to the door, leaving Stryker with one simple instruction. "Finish the job this time." "Alone at last." Stryker grinned as the door closed, leaning down to grab Stolas by the back of the head, claws tangling in his feathers. "Miss me?" He slid the blade along the side of Stolas's face, then down his throat, along his collarbone, to trace the scar on his shoulder. Bet you did. He snorted a hot puff of air against Stolas's cheek. Never had a man deep inside you as I've been, huh? Fighting against the terror, Stolas managed to bite back. Blitzy's been deeper. Stryker recoiled a little, lip curling in disgust. Stolas stared him down. Pussy, he thought. Don't start what you can't finish. He pushed Stolas's head roughly, stepping away to pace around him, twirling the point of the knife against a fingertip. You know, your fate is set in stone, Goetia, but your kid's another story. If you're real nice, if you beg real pretty like, I might just make it quick for her. Stolas pitched forward onto his knees. They haven't. They wouldn't. But they might, he thought. He'd always known they might. Or what was all of this spell nonsense for? Not yet. Stryker gave a one-armed shrug, continuing to twirl his knife. But they will. Trust me. Blue Bloods'll never be happy with the lot they've got. I'll be expecting that call any day now. You're forgetting one very important thing, Stolas warned him. And what's that, Feathers? Stryker asked with a lopsided smirk, tilting his head as he continued to pace. Unable to think of a cool line to follow that up with, Stolas just said, "Ah!" and swept a long leg out to trip him. It worked remarkably well, the sole benefit to being seen as a laughingstock by literally everyone around you, Stolas supposed. No one ever expected you to surprise them. Stryker stumbled and lost his balance, and Stolas rolled onto his back to kick out with both legs. Stryker fell to the ground, and Stolas reached deep inside himself for that spark of demon within, that waning ember of eldritch power that even banishment could not strip from him. But he was weak now, weaker than ever in this moment after having exhausted so much of himself on the aborted chronomancy spell, and what he managed to draw from the depths was but a shadow of the ferocity he needed. Still, it was enough to get him off the floor, to earn him a second to look down at Stryker's prone form before he was no longer prone but up, and at Stolas's throat once more. They grappled like children in the playground, like Rathians during the pain games, not at all like a master assassin and a proud Goetia, but two desperate men, neither of whom could afford yet another failure here. Don't let him disrupt the circle, he thought. Above all else, protect the circle. Stryker coiled his leg around Stolas's arm and yanked him close. Stolas surged into his shadow self and knocked the both of them flying into the desk, and this time the fucking piece of shit moved. They fought like beasts, like cornered dogs, and it wasn't until Stolas saw the triumph in Stryker's eyes that he even realized he had lost. He stumbled back, and the knife slid free, blood spurting black down onto the carpet, one hand on his stomach where the blood kept spilling. Stolas used the other to brace himself against a chair before it came crashing down with him anyway. Stryker, breathing heavily but trying to pretend he wasn't, was saying something, gloating, most likely, but Stolas wasn't listening. He could only look in relief at the ritual circle where the candles miraculously remained lit, the components were still in place, and the intricately designed lines had been left intact. "What is that?" Stryker asked, and Stolas didn't miss the undercurrent of unease in his voice. "A spell circle," Stolas told him, pressing hard against his abdomen, blood seeping between his fingers. "Just a little insurance." "The fuck does that mean?" Stryker's eyes flashed as he yanked Stolas up by the head feathers. "Hey, the fuck does that mean?" "It means you have precious few seconds left, cocksucker." "Ooh, cocksucker, that felt good. That felt very Blitz. "Before the harm you've done to me rebounds tenfold onto you." Stryker reared back, letting go so fast that Stolas slammed back onto the floor. His eyes flickered between Stolas and the circle like he wasn't sure if he believed him, but wasn't sure he could afford to take the chance. Spitting at his feet, he sneered. "You're already dead anyway, and smashed through the window without a backward glance. "Just kidding," Stolas sing-songed once he was gone, then shuddered around the blooming pain in his gut. There wasn't time to waste. He was losing focus as fast as he was losing blood, and the ritual was not yet complete. He had prepared it as best he could, and he remembered the incantation from the grimoire. He was pretty certain. He had done so little right in such a long time. At least his final act in this world would be something he could at last be proud of. "I love you, Starfire," he thought. "Be safe." He dragged himself up to his knees before the pentagram and spoke the words. The circle glowed, the candlelight danced, and everything was going so dark. His mind fumbled. Was that brimstone supposed to be there or not? Was the line he just recited for the protection spell or the time spell? Everything tangled together in his head, a writhing pitch mass of I can't remember, I can't think, I can't see. He blinked, and when he opened his eyes he was lying on the floor and the circle had gone dark and cold. The spell was done. Hands wet, Stolas reached for the bag a little ways away, pulling it until everything inside spilled out, his phone sliding close enough to grab. Shaking so hard it took him 4 tries, he finally managed to place a call. "Stolas!" came Blitz's belligerent voice as he answered on the 4th ring. "Since I remember who the fuck you are and we're not all walking around sporting mustaches or some shit, I take it you haven't managed to fuck up the timeline yet. What's the matter? Store all out of slime, snails, and puppy dog tails?" "Blitz," Stolas managed, and that was all he could manage, quivering around a breath that was more painful than the one before it, and then another that was more painful than that. "Stolas," Blitz said, and he no longer sounded angry. He sounded scared. Just come home, okay? Let's talk about this some more. Can we please just talk about it?" "Blitz," Stolas pushed out again. Then, "Office." Then everything went black once more. When his eyes next opened, they opened only to slits, and saw very little. But he saw Blitz, that handsome, dear face looking down at him. He felt those strong arms pulling him in close, the heat of his lap, the warmth of his tears as they fell into Stolas's feathers. "You can't do this to me. You can't do this. Stolas, please." He was battling, rocking him as he pleaded. "You can't leave me, Stolas, please." With the dregs of his strength, Stolas reached up to brush Blitz's cheek with his fingertips, leaving a black smear in their wake. Blitz grabbed his hand and pressed it tighter to his face, turning a kiss into the palm. "Blitz." "I'm sorry," Stolas said, voice less than a whisper. "Oh, fuck, who gives a shit about any of that, Stolas? I don't even remember what we were fighting about." Blitz lied, crying harder than Stolas had ever seen. "This is just awful," Stolas wanted to tell him, but couldn't gather the power. "I've ruined the lovely sweater you bought for me." Instead, he mustered what remained to him and gasped out, "I love you." "You fucking asshole," Blitz sobbed, clutching him tighter, pressing their foreheads together. "I love you too." The spell had worked. Stolas had to believe that. Octavia would be safe, and the spell had worked, and Blitz was here, and the spell had worked, and Octavia would be safe, and if he could have wished for one more thing, greedy, selfish bird that he was. If only I could have seen her one last time.